Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Locked In FPL, formerly Net That Haul. I'm back, as always, FPL Nima, your host, with my good friend Tinesh at FPL_TT on X. He is a massive Newcastle fan, an all-round legend in the FPL community, a regular attendee of all the FPL meets and fun. Welcome to the show, Tinesh. I'm glad you're my first guest on the newly relaunched Locked In FPL.
Nima, I'm so excited to be here, mate. I'm buzzing for you. Relaunch of the channel and first guest. I'm ready to talk FPL, man. Let's do it.
So much fun. Thank you, everyone, for your patience in the chat. Apologies for going live slightly over the expected time. But yeah, as you can also see, the logo, if you're on podcast, has changed. So I'm trying to slowly update it across all the different platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. There's a lot of work in the background. The logo is not even actually the final logo. So I decided we just need to keep going. We said farewell to Net That Haul last week. We used the branding one last time, saw the intro music and bid it farewell. And it was nice to relive those memories, 4 seasons of greatness. And once again, thank you everyone who helped us secure those 3 finals in a row in the Football Content Awards. So we start afresh, anew every week, every Wednesday primarily, going live with a guest, keeping it under 60 minutes. Keep an eye out. We want to make it a regular part of your listening. And if there's anyone you want to see or hear from in the community, please reach out to me on @FPL on X and we'll see if we can get them on. But yeah, so I've put Isaac on this thumbnail, TT. But I'm just thinking before we go straight into Newcastle, which is why I'm sure the people in the live chat are here because they know that you will do a far better job talking about Newcastle than I would. I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the new changes in FPL? I've not seen many for years. Do you have a favorite? Is there something you're a bit meh about? Yeah, just in general, what are your thoughts, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like, fair play. Like, I didn't think they would actually do anything this year. So it's actually nice we've got something new to think about, right? Like, the last few seasons, like you said, it's literally just been the same chips, the same kind of double game week, blank game week kind of schedules. And we kind of already know our strategies going into it a little bit. So this season, I think, is giving everyone a little bit of food for thought. The one I'm most interested in is definitely the 5-3 transfers. I think that opens up a different kind of style of play. And whether you're like a super patient manager or someone who maybe was aggressive before, you might rethink your strategy a little bit. So that's something I'm definitely looking to like abuse. I think that's something people won't have got their head around yet. And like until we really get through a full season, like eventually there'll be like strategies that emerge. And I have an idea in mind of kind of what I want to do with that. And I'm sure you've thought about it as well, but I definitely like the 5-3 transfers. I think that's a good move. For the point scoring, I mean, BPS, a lot of people have asked for changes to that. I think the changes they've made are good. They're positive. Obviously, defenders and goalkeepers now are a little bit weaker now with the changes. But I think now, especially strikers, I think now they're on a little bit more of a par. Midfielders generally had the extra point for the clean sheet, the goal, but now bonus seems to be a little bit more in favour for forwards as well. So something to think about there too. And then obviously we've got this mystery chip. Who knows? We can't. It's strange that they just didn't tell us what it was. I don't know what you thought about that, but we just got to wait and see. It might be like a 1 game week thing. That's what I'm thinking.
I hope so, man, because it seems crazy to not be able to know what it is until January. Maybe they're figuring it out and they'll tell us before. Maybe they're waiting to hear all the different ideas the community has and pick their favorite one or the one that they won't struggle to implement the least. So that is something I'm not happy about, but everything else I'm happy about. Bonus points changes, that's great. 5-3 transfers, that's awesome. And I agree with you. I feel like as each year, like the kind of the analytics and the modeling part of the game has gotten a lot stronger. Even beyond that, people copying content creators has gotten stronger, more engaged players. There's already millions registered. Like 20 minutes after the game launched, there was already 6-figure team IDs. Like the engaged group is growing year on year. And the fact that there's now 5-3 transfers, potentially, that just feels like that's something that's a bit of an unknown. And we always say in game week 1, we know less than we know any other point in the season. And even though we do all this research leading up to it, it feels like we know so much, but it's a fallacy because just within a week, everything could change. And then within 2 weeks, the first game week that you thought was life-changing is just 50% of the new stuff, because now you've got game week 2 and you've got double the information.
Exactly.
So it's just like, I'm so excited, man. Yeah. So for me, that's my perspective, is just to put it in there that I just want to see how it goes, see if it has a positive impact on the models, the content creator copies, whatever else, and just see if before people can figure out how to play the new thing or how to develop the new thing, it's our chance to go back to the roots of FPL and hopefully just enjoy. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see your draft later and see if people in the chat think it's template or not. But that's a different discussion. I never said we'll kill the template. There'll always be a template. There'll always
we'll find it. Community always finds a way for a template. So yeah.
100%. So I think we'll keep going because a couple of things I want to ask you, which seem kind of relevant based on what we've just said, is more about your play style in FPL, I suppose. So do you consider yourself like more of an aggressive manager, more of a patient manager? Are you maverick? You know, like what do you kind of do? What would be your rules of thumb, I suppose?
Yeah, so this is now my 17th or 18th season playing FPL. So I'd like to think I'm more on the patient side. The planning element of the game I absolutely love. So where we had like double game weeks, blank game weeks, like that's where I come into my own, I think. And when it comes to the start of the season, I prefer to go with the known. So I'll pick players with good historic data, with known managers, known play styles, that sort of thing. So where we've got a lot of big shifts in like Liverpool, Chelsea, those kind of teams, I might be a bit more cautious to start the season with. But I always like to sprinkle one or two punts in there because I think there's always a good balance, and usually we can find that one or two differentials is all it really needs to help you slowly rise up the ranks. So I'd say that's probably my play style, to be honest. Try and play patient to start with, light planning, and then really kind of try kick on towards the back end of the season to hit as high rank as possible.
I like that. I think it maybe almost goes back to a cliche, the kind of the famous you can't, win FPL in game week 1, but you can lose it. So
exactly.
That's always something that scares me. The thought of kind of having to climb from 8-9 million. My annual goal, right, is to get top 100k. I reckon it's been like that for 6-7 seasons. And I'd say within about 10 game weeks, that's when I'll look at my rank seriously and be like, oh, okay, like, so am I going to be climbing? And is 100k going to be my stretch goal this season? Or could I actually aim for a better finish because it's been a much better start? But I never like kind of put too much credence into the first 10 weeks or much thought because I don't want to change my strategy or my play style personally based on a few things that might happen or things that don't go my way. I'd rather just kind of just play it my way, get to game week 10 and then reassess. But yeah, towards the end, aggression obviously can pay off. But yeah, I'm not looking to kind of change my play style and be pragmatic a few weeks in. I think others in the chat, they might, be aggressive and actually make a wildcard game week 3 or game week 4 and adapt to the information straight away. But I'm actually someone who's always kind of not done that early wildcard typically, I'd say. Like normally I roll 2 transfers into game week 3 and then like I use maybe a -4 to do 3 moves, then I try save 2 more again. Sometimes it's October, November before I'm even having to think about making major transfers. So I'm a very slow manager, but it sounds like you're a bit more maverick at times when you need to be. Then what about your finishes as well? What tell us a bit more about the maverick streak, but also about, I guess, how many years you've been playing in general, what got you into FPL, and yeah, like just tell us a bit more about the background of FPL TT.
Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, I'm either 17th or 18th season. So I started playing when I was like 11 or 12, and obviously at that age didn't really understand the game as well as since I've joined the community. But I think for me, the addiction of FPL came from the planning and the kind of strategy around it. And once you we all know, right, we're addicted because we love looking into fixture tickers and, all the sort of planning, the chips, all that sort of thing. And like, once you really get your head around it, like that's what makes the game for me anyway. But like the wildcard side of things, like I like to try and go early on the wildcard. I've always typically wildcarded between like game week 4 and game week 6 because I like to think I would have learned enough by that point that I can try and get a jump on other people, even if there might be like better fixture swings later on. So I like to try and get a little bit of a start on other people and then consolidate from there on in. So that's usually kind of the strategy I go for. But I think, and maybe we'll get into it later, that a lot of people will look to wildcard a bit earlier than they might usually want to this season with the changes.
Yeah, I'm very excited, especially about rolling the transfers for a wildcard because I played Fan Team last year and you could roll kind of transfers unlimited. But if you used a wildcard, they'd be gone. So you kind of have to be careful with that. Whereas now, I feel like so much open-ended routes that we can all go on depending on what happens to our team. So I'm very excited. Yeah, I remember you mentioned you started very young. I guess, were you playing with like any siblings, or like was it like a school thing at the time? Because 11, you must have been like primary school going on secondary school. That's definitely very early, I would say.
Yeah. So all I remember was like at secondary school, they had their own version of like FPL. So I was still playing the main game, but they had their own version of like FPL. I don't know how it was run, but it was actually run between schools. So I think that's what actually got me into the game initially. And then once I started playing kind of FPL more of the traditional game format, then yeah, that was it from there. But I think my game definitely elevated like since joining Twitter. Like Twitter just opened my eyes to like a whole different level of playing the game that I
think that's just, yeah, I suppose you're right, because I was always like a lurker on Reddit on the Fantasy PL.
Yeah.
And through there, I remember I used to see like injury news from like it was Ben Dinnery at the time, spreadsheets for double game weeks from Ben Krellin, and leaks from Rockstar. So I slowly came over to Twitter as it was back then. And that's why I created the account. And it is actually since I had that account and joined this community, all my best finishes, my best free finishes in like 10 years or more of playing in that period. So yeah, exactly. I'll make of that what you will. I think definitely it's lovely having a community. That's why I love making this content, right? And I think this season is about going back to those roots, remembering why I started doing FPL, why I wrote articles back in the day, why I did YouTube videos. And we had a great journey with Gabe and Chris, and we will forever remain friends. And, 3-4 seasons of that brings a brotherhood that you can't break. But it's also exciting to embark on my own chapter now with my friends, all the people I've met through the FPL community these last few years, all the meetups that we've hosted all over the world. Like, just this FPL community is surreal. So I love hearing about your school story, but be careful because someone out there is listening to this episode and they're thinking about how they can monetize these children before they leave school. So I don't mean to play into that narrative of all the cash grabbing going on in the FPL community, because I don't really care. But I do just find it hilarious watching just constant crap on the timeline between people throwing mud at each other. And I try to stay out of it. Nice.
Yeah. Like, I haven't been on Twitter that long. I've only been on Twitter maybe 6-7 years now. But like the way it's evolved now, like FPL has now become like a mainstream platform for like media. Like now we're seeing content creators on mainstream channels like Sky Sports, all sorts. Like, and it's great for the community, but obviously, like you mentioned, it brings this other element of trying to monetize the game like in different ways. So again, not for me personally, but we just keep playing the way we want to play. That's what we do, right? So
yeah, I think the way I see it, that's most changed for me is that back in the day, maybe you were trying to compete, let's say, against like few 100,000 engaged managers to get top 10K. But now the problem is, right, if a few content creators with a large following have a good season, then you're competing basically really now, I'd say, against the top 50 most followed content creators, because if those top 50 have the exact identical teams of God knows how many followers, we're looking at probably 6 figures. Now you've got hundreds of thousands who could be trying to get into top 10K ahead of you if you make one move different to that content creator. So it really is good that they've added these transfers now, because I feel like people will be harder for them to copy people if they miss a transfer because of a price change or have a different number of transfers compared to the person they're trying to copy. So I really hope this kind of, I know copying can't be fully removed, and I'm happy for people to play it whatever way they like. Copy a model, copy a content creator, play a bus team that's just a zombie team or season. I don't care, right? Like, everyone play their way, and I'm just in it to try and get the points and beat you guys, right? So for me, one of the things I want to bring on this season is I'm definitely going to keep a score of all the guests that come on and see where everybody finishes at the end of the season. So you and Craig are first on the leaderboard, and I'm going to try and see if I can build like a live tracker of myself against all of you guys each week who come. So throughout the season, we can keep a track. And let's say there's a week where you're maybe about to overtake someone and go first in the mini league. Hopefully, maybe we can get you back on then. So we'll try to time it with the banter between everyone who's coming on and where you're positioned in the mini league. So hopefully that's going to be some fun. Yeah. So let's keep going, because I think we've talked a little bit about your play style, talked about FPL in general, how you got into it. It's really, this is the stuff I love, right? So I intend, just for anyone who is here, the committed fans who've stayed over and been loyal across channels, my goal is to spend like 45 minutes to 60 minutes, spend the first 20 minutes getting to know the guests, find out why you love FPL, just more general chat, and just have fun. And then we'll just talk about whatever's relevant that week, the main 2-3 topics, and we'll just debate them to death. Like, we will fight each other and strangle each other to the death to get to a conclusion of that debate. So it will be hard to prepare because, when we go live, I'll just pick whatever the 2-3 main debating points are at that moment. And they might have changed since yesterday. So if you as my guest try to prepare, it keeps you genuine and people get to see the real you and what you really enjoy doing in the game of FPL. And I think that's going to be the fun part going forward. So now that we've reached that close to 20-minute bit, we will start to move towards the real FPL, as I mentioned. But it was still very nice to just have the general chat. And you'll be back. I'm sure we'll have more ample opportunity to have some fun there. But let's see this. So this is a little bit going into Newcastle now. So 15 minutes 23, if you're on podcast, I'm just telling you this timestamp so you can come and have a look at the lineup graphic from SofaScore. So I think it was this morning, Newcastle United had a friendly against Urawa Red Diamond. This is the starting 11 from the back. It was Nick Pope, Livramento, Kraft, Byrne, Hall. In the midfield, Joe Willock, Joe Linton, and Longstaff either side of him. Up front, Isaac with Murphy and Barnes either side. You won 4-1. I see 2 goals for Jacob Murphy, 1 goal for Isaac, 1 goal for Lewis Hall. A ton of subs. You can see the entire bench, apart from John Ruddy, was used. Everyone, even Nick Pope got subbed off. So what are your thoughts? How far along are you in pre-season? I've not kept much up with Newcastle, which is why I wanted you here today. But I also feel they're a very relevant team for FPL because I have a feeling everyone's asking what are the best free assets. So before we talk about FPL and the assets, I'd love to know just more about, how many games you've played in pre-season, or like, are all your players back? Like, how do you feel as a fan? Like, are you excited? Obviously, last season you got back into the Champions League and then it didn't quite work out. Now you've maybe trying to get more depth. So I'd love to know, how do you feel compared to last summer going into the season, but this summer? I'm really intrigued just from a fan perspective as opposed to the FPL assets to start with anyway.
Yeah. I mean, last season, it was a really great, for me, it was a really nice season. Like you mentioned, Champions League football again to the club was just amazing. Like, I was lucky enough to go to some of the matches. I went to Milan away. I went to PSG at home where we won that game. Like, that will live with me for like the rest of my life. Like, that was such a great experience. And I think a lot of people looked at our season and thought we probably underperformed a little bit, but I'd like to think that we just really overperformed the season before. I don't think anyone expected us to even finish Champions League the season before. So finishing 7th last season was probably about right for us. I think that's probably where we are in terms of the other teams in the league. And considering we had so many injuries, like the injuries really impacted us and we lost key players in key positions. Things like the Tonali betting incident, like you can't factor for that. So considering all these factors, I actually thought we had a really decent season. I was actually really happy with the way we played. We broke our record for like the most number of goals scored in any season. So I think that says a lot about where the team has come. Like, we've now evolved into a very pragmatic, like high intensity attacking team. And that's what all the fans wanted to see. So I'm buzzing with the way the club is. It's just really a case of like, how far can we push forward and can we really get into contention at some point to win titles? Like, that's all I want. So I'm really excited for this season. I think not qualifying for European football is going to be like a huge factor for us. Like, having 1 game a week, keeping players fit is going to be really the first port of call. Like, try and keep the key players fit. And then we can hopefully replicate the form that we had 2 seasons ago where we finished Champions League. So yeah, I'm actually really positive. I think we've got a good squad. We've got a real kind of core spine now that's now been at the club for like a couple seasons. And now we need a few signings, I think, to kind of build out the team a little bit. But otherwise, like, I'm definitely really positive, like I said, for this season. In terms of pre-season, so we played 1 game before this against Hull, which we won 2-0. And that was kind of just like the first initial warm-up. And Isak scored in that game as well. So pre-season's kind of still early stages. They're on this Japan tour at the moment. So I think there's another game at the weekend. And the game today, I didn't get a chance to watch it because it was quite early in the day. But this lineup it's stronger, like considering we're 2 weeks away. Like, I think this isn't too far away from where our first 11 is. So I think that's quite good to see that a lot of the players that I'd like to think would start game week 1 are probably already getting good minutes and getting the minutes in their legs ready for that first game of the season. I mean, Isak, I would be so shocked if people just don't have this guy in their team. Like, he is absolutely incredible.
And he keeps scoring as well, obviously. So he scored again in this one. And it's just so annoying because I feel like at first, like when you look at the difference between, say, the total ownership and then maybe ownership on Twitter or ownership of content creators, like on Focal's experts video, right? The ownership of players like Isaac is basically close to 100% amongst like certain circles, but the total selected by numbers stayed relatively decent, like enough that at least maybe for a few weeks, if he doesn't keep getting bought before game week 1, he is going to help us. But so it's tough because we got to be honest here and we got to give our true opinion, which is I think we're both going to have him, and like he's not
100%.
even like a debate in our team, right? He's as close to a lock as it's going to get. So I think with the name of the show, man, he's locked in. So he's one of 15 now, and hopefully I won't before game week 1 change any of these locked in players because the viewers are going to hold me accountable for sure. But yeah, Isaac is locked in. So then that really leaves 2 positions, right? But just touching on preseason before we talk about FPL. So yeah, because I was looking at this team and I guess who would be the changes? Because one thing I'm considering is that Livramento might start, getting very popular as well in drafts. It sounds like Trippier is going to go. Like, do you see that happening? Or like, would you want him to stay longer as a fan? Or like, do you think it's a good option for you to kind of just get Livramento fully in and just kind of make whatever money you can off Trippier and thank him for the last few seasons?
I think that's what it is, mate. I think Trippier has been like an absolute brilliant servant. Like he was the first signing of the new ownership. We were 20th when we signed him. So the fact that he even came to us from Atletico Madrid, a team playing Champions League football, was a massive position for us, like to get a player of that caliber. He's been our captain. Like I absolutely love him and I don't want to see him go, but I can also understand why the club are considering selling him because now he's 33, he's getting on. They're just thinking potentially let's just cash in on him. And the player we've got who's ready to go is Livramento. Like he's proven now for a few seasons like what quality he has at such a young age. I think he came in while Trippier was injured last season and he played brilliantly. I thought he was just really, really aggressive, like exactly his kind of play style, proper attacking, old school kind of fullback, loves to get involved in the play. He loves to invert as well. Like when he gets kind of to the opponent's box, like he's looking to try and get into the box and get into those dangerous positions too. I think like there's a lot of similarities to Munoz there that people really love at Palace too. So Livramento, he's just a brilliant player. So if Trippier leaves, obviously I'll be gutted, but we've got a ready-made replacement. So I wouldn't be too upset. And I think he deserves to start. I think he's more than capable and a good enough player that he deserves to play in this team. So I know a lot of people will look at him. I haven't seen anything concrete about Trippier leaving. I think
it seems speculative, doesn't it, so far?
Yeah, it's very speculative. I mean, Eddie Howe said he's due back for preseason training next week. So we'll see what happens with that. I think whether he comes back or not, like I'm sure he'll probably come back, but then how involved he is in the matches, like will give us an idea of whether he's actually going to leave or not. But
it's like Smith Rowe, right? He went to the US and then next thing I know, I can see him on his way from a medical in London to a different country in Europe for a tour with Fulham. So yeah,
exactly.
It can happen. Exactly. Maybe it's a farewell tour. He comes and says goodbye to everyone.
Yeah. So the fact Livramento is getting minutes is already good, right? So say Trippier does go, like he's ready to go. I think he's slowly proving his fitness a little bit because he's quite injury prone. So that's something that Howe will be conscious of just to kind of manage his minutes as well.
So will Gordon? So did Howe say that Gordon, like the whole England contingent, they're all going to come?
Yeah.
Back
So
time,
Gordon, right? Yeah, Gordon and Trips, they'll be back next week. So I think we've got a couple games next weekend, and then I think that'll be it before game week 1. So hopefully we'll see those two feature like in those preseason games next week.
Yeah, because you're only maybe 1 or 2 players in this 11, I would say, away from like what is probably going to be game week 1, as you say, and that's a good position to be in. Like, you want that, right? I've been watching the Arsenal preseason games, and like Timber's been playing right centre back instead of Saliba so far. So you're kind of like, okay, like, so what's going to happen? Saliba's going to be back next week with the England boys. Obviously, Rice hasn't started yet. Saka hasn't started yet. So you're kind of looking at your players and you're like, shit, like, I want these guys. Even Raya isn't back, right? So, that's 4 players in the final who I'm like, guys, like, we've had 2 free preseason games. There's another one tonight against Liverpool. And I'm like, I need these guys to start getting minutes. Like, I want potentially someone in my game week 1 team, and I can't be doing that. Yeah. I've not even seen them on a pitch yet for preseason, man. So yeah, Gordon's in my team now, and he's a similar thing where, because I've not seen him, I'm wondering if I'm getting cold feet on him. But what do you think? Is he in your? Actually, I won't ask if he's in your draft because there's a section about your draft. So before we see which players you own, is there anything else? I guess you mentioned the lack of the kind of European football being a positive this season, and I think that's definitely true. what are your thoughts in terms of how you might bring in youth? Like, because I know in the past, Howe was kind of known as someone who would bring in the youth players at Bournemouth, and like he got a nice style of football. He always played attacking football back in Bournemouth, like a glass cannon, I suppose. He's got a much better defense with you guys, probably a much better team too now. And like, how far away do you think you are, I guess, is from what you said at the beginning, which is ultimately maybe challenging for a title, or trying to, if you did get back into the Champions League again, then, maintaining some kind of like run to the knockout rounds, or like how far away do you think you are, like realistically? Like how happy are you with the signings? Like, who do you want to buy? What position do you think's weak?
Yeah, so I guess aim for this season will just be to hopefully get European football, some sort of European football this season. So I think Europa League hopefully is realistic. We can kind of finish somewhere around 6th or 7th again, try and get a Europa League or something like that. That'll be great. But I think, like I said, we haven't got European football, so I almost want to elevate that expectation to try and push on and just really try and go for Champions League again, because I think we've got the squad to do it. And the quality of the players now we've got, like the first 11's a lot stronger, but I don't think we've got the squad depth to kind of compete with the big boys at the moment. In terms of like signings, we haven't really made any big signings yet. I think they're obviously focused with getting rid of some players to meet PSR and stuff. So we've spent a lot of money before, but they're kind of balancing the books right now. So whether we get some signings in, we'll have to see. I think right wing is a big position that they'll look to fill. So who that is, I'm not sure. I've just seen like Somerville is now going to West Ham. So that's like one of the players we were linked with that's now gone. So I think the market for right wingers is definitely shrinking. So hopefully they'll act quickly for that. And I think definitely another centre back will come in. We're linked with Malik Chow from Milan, and he's a quality player. So again, he's someone that would just improve our first 11 straight away. So I guess coming back to the kind of youth aspect, and a player I'm super hot on is Lewis Hall. I think he's going to get the nod at left back this season. I feel really comfortable that he will now get his time in this team. He finished the season like really well last season, like the last 6 to 8 games. Like he came in and he struggled a little bit at the start, but he's really now, I think, bedded into the Howe system. Like he understands like the fitness levels required, the style of play. And I think this is his season now to really kick on. So I think Hall, for me, is my kind of go-to right now, given that Trippier's still there. I prefer Hall as kind of the Newcastle defender of choice. I think Dan Burn will get the nod, and I know a lot of people have got Dan Burn in their team. And Dan Burn's always just an Eddie Howe favourite. Eddie Howe will play him as long as he physically can. And he's got the flexibility of playing left back too. But I think given that Lloyd Kelly is still a little bit away from kind of learning the style and getting up to fitness, I'm sure like Dan Burn will get the nod to start the season. And he's played full 90 minutes already. He's played 90 minutes in the last 2. So I think that will give people comfort to pick him, that he'll kind of start the season as well. So yeah, for me, I would really want to take the punt on Lewis Hall. I think he's the one that I want to really take the punt on, because he could have set pieces too. He's taken short free kicks, corners as well. So him and Gordon could very easily share set pieces. So I'm very hot on Lewis Hall. Anthony Gordon will be in my team. He's just an absolute electric player. He had an amazing season last season, and 1 game a week again. I'm really emphasizing that because I think that makes a huge difference for us. So just keeping these players fresh, like, will go a long way. So Isak, Gordon, and Hall are the 3 I'm really advocating, I think. But Burn is a good option as well.
Thank you, man. No, that's honestly been so insightful for me as well. I think I've been thinking Livramento was the kind of the key if Trippier was confirmed to be leaving, but Lewis Hall, I hadn't even considered him, and you mentioned the set pieces, and now I'm like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board here. I need to really look into Newcastle.
Yeah, because a lot of people are thinking, obviously, with Livramento, they've seen what Livramento can do. And I think if we know Livramento's going to be the one playing, I'd probably prefer him over Hall just because he's got the goal threat. I don't think Lewis Hall's maybe got the goal threat that Livramento does, but all round just kind of consistency, I think Hall's got the probably the better goal involvement for assists with the set pieces. So I think he's a bit more of a safer pick over Livramento right now.
I suppose even if Trippier goes, Livramento may still see some lower expected minutes than Lewis Hall, and other defenders might sub in as well. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. Before we go on, I just want to quickly shout out everyone who's in the chat. We're about 30 minutes in. First time I'm going to say hello to everyone in the live chat. So we've got Podner. What's up, Podners? Thank you for tuning in, buddy. We have Claire FPL. Thanks for making your way over. Fantasy Pavilion. Jared, my brother, good to see you. Sorry we couldn't catch up, but we'll be cooking some new stuff as soon as we do. We've got FPL Discomfort. What a way to kick off the new show. I can only imagine he's talking about our guest TT and not the 5-second countdown timer from StreamYard. But so Tommy Gunn, evening, everyone. Getty FPL, good evening all. We've got Ben Moxham, good to see you. Looking forward to the content this season. Elron Cupboard, one of our Patreons, good to see you, buddy. Animations, good to see you. They say they'll have 3 Newcastle in Isaac, Gordon, and Pope. So I might just ask you a little bit about Pope in a moment. We've got FPL Fran here, some royalty in the house as well. FPL Teacher, TT, Nima, what a crossover. Got FPL Fella. Hi guys, good luck with the relaunch, Nima. Thank you, buddy. My partner in crime at FPL Meets. He is a better man than I am, that's for sure. I love FPL Fella. So if you don't follow him, follow him. But I'm sure he's probably better known than me. So and it goes without saying. FPL Fran as well. I would say follow him, but again, I think that goes without saying. So hopefully we can get Fran on the channel at some point this season. That'll be fun. Same with Fella. I'm hoping he will come with me on the launch week and he will roast teams. So back in the day, TT, you know, RMTs normally rate my team. Mine was always roast my team because I'm like, it's more fun. So yeah, we just sit there and roast all the teams.
Just roast teams. That's how
so much more fun, man. So we have a FPL Discomfort saying you can't spell triple Newcastle defense without TT. That's another good one.
Oh, I like it.
We got, so what else do we have here? We got Woodstock Chris. Thank you for tuning in, buddy. Lynn Locked In. Good to see you. Thank you for your help with the logo. You have been a godsend with all the rebranding. Chris Richards, I'm late to the party. Murphy in. I do love, you know what my favorite photo is, TT? It's the face of Jacob Murphy after being in shock scoring the goal against Spurs.
Oh, against Spurs? I love that. That's a meme.
Just with his mouth wide. That is one of my favorite. Like that is like one of my. I have a burner account on Twitter with that photo as a headshot of him. I love him so much. FPL Harry in the house. Some more royalty. We have just here for TT to tell me to get Murphy and Willock. So quick succession. We've got some Murphy shouts. So we're going to ask you about Pope. We're going to ask you about Murphy. We're going to ask you about Willock. And he's here to support the new show, of course. Ignatius Bryan, thank you for tuning in. Good to see you. I think based on your question, is Hall better option than Burn? I would suggest so based on what TT said previously when talking about Burn and Hall. So any other final ones? Catherine A, good luck with the new channel, Nima. Thank you for joining us. Have I missed anyone? Jaskrin Singh, all the best, everyone. Thank you for jumping in. Fran Dundil, good to see you, buddy. We're going to bring you over from the Spanish national team to Iran. Hopefully we won't be in the same group again in the next World Cup. I remember a tournament where we had Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. It was the Euros champion, World Cup champion, and AFCON champion in our group. And we were almost through as top of the group. Can you believe it, TT? Like 2018 World Cup.
It was so good to watch as well, man. I loved watching Iran.
It was so funny because like they defend for their lives. It's like that the passion that they have. They're all like me, but they're better at football. But they just have the same loudness and passion. Rated R, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in, mate. And I will keep putting the messages up on the screen as we go. But before we carry on, so I think the questions we said we'll cover before we move on from Newcastle, TT, was Pope. Maybe we talk about him first. And then once you've shared some stuff about that, let's talk more about the midfielders in Willock and, well, I say midfielders, but Jacob Murphy's playing winger. So,
yeah. So Pope, I think not even just Pope as a pick himself, but just Pope being in that team. Like defensively, we were so poor last season. Like we were probably a top 3 defense that season before, but we just really like went downhill last season. I think that was just obviously because of injuries, and Pope being one of them was like a huge miss. So just having him back in the team elevates our defense like massively. I think people are just underestimating like how much our defense will be better with Pope in the team. Like he saved a penalty today. Like that alone, like just shows how influential he is. I'm really excited just to have him back as a pure shot stopper. And I think he's just a really solid pick at 5. he's obviously more expensive than maybe we'd want to spend on our keepers this season. But if you've got money spare and we've got decent fixtures to start, like he's not a bad pick at all, especially given like there's a little bit of uncertainty about who's going to play in that back four and which kind of 4-5 defenders actually nailed in that team. Like paying a little bit more for Pope, I don't think is the worst thing to go. Like it's not the worst way to go. So he will still be high for saves. Bonus isn't now as good for goalkeepers, but ultimately clean sheets is what's going to get the points for goalkeepers, and I hope we'll be a lot better defensively. I mean, considering we weren't that great, we still came out with 9 or 10 clean sheets, which wasn't the worst. Like we were still ranked like 6th or 7th in terms of overall clean sheets. So I just think we'll elevate as a defense this season.
Yeah, so I think definitely Pope. I've actually seen him starting to crop up in a couple of FPL drafts on the timeline. So I think he's definitely being monitored. I think as it stands, what we were saying about Hall and Livramento, if either of them are an option, I think I can't see myself not going for them over Pope. So it's kind of a non-starter for me, but maybe it's because I'm too wedded to the idea of how much I spend and finding the next 4.5 million goalkeeper that does well. But yeah, patience is key with that one. Last season was obviously the infamous Pickford being kept by most people for like 2 months, and then after game week 8, we sell him after 0 clean sheets and he gets that 10 in a row. Yeah, so it's just pain, man. What are your thoughts on Jacob Murphy? Like, he's not someone I would have ever really considered in FPL personally. I'm not going to lie. Same with Joe Willock. I'd get them in like fan tracks or Sky back in the day or whatever. Like, I get them in other formats where you get points for like being a good player and doing a lot of things. But I don't know if personally I would want them in FPL. I just, I don't know, man. And I'm a big Willock fan. And when he first came on loan to you guys, he was about to break like Vardy's record of like most consecutive goals in Premier League games. Do you remember that? I think he got to like 10 or something. And that Vardy got to 12.
I think it was 7 and 7 or 8 and 8 was.
He was catching up to them. Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, so good, Jacob Murphy is just doing what he does in pre-season. Like he's absolutely selling everyone dreams. But to be fair to him, like he's doing his thing. Like I can't not respect it. Like this is Jacob Murphy is just the epitome of hard worker. Like does everything for the team, and he chips in like when we need him most. So I can't knock him. I actually think he will start the season. So whether you kind of pick him as like a game week 1 punt, like I don't hate it because I think Almiron is just not up to speed and he's getting on a bit now. We haven't signed a right winger yet. So even if we do, I don't think Howe will put him straight into the lineup unless it's someone like of real quality. So that right wing position is really open. I think I don't think he likes to play both Harvey Barnes and Gordon together because Barnes is very much a one-sided, like he only can play on the left. So that forces Gordon onto the right, and Gordon's just not as effective on that side. So for the balance of the team, I think he'd prefer to keep Gordon attacking from the left, and then Murphy will just kind of facilitate on that right. He's good defensively as well. So to be honest with you, I don't hate it. I think for just a kind of short-term punt, like Murphy, I'm expecting will play, but I wouldn't pick him like with the thought that you can keep him for like 4 or 5 game weeks. I think it's at that point he might get phased out of the team, assuming we sign someone or he prefers Barnes and Gordon. But he's playing really well. He scored 3 or 4 goals now in pre-season. So fair play. I actually don't know what his price is. I don't think I've ever looked up Jacob Murphy's price in FPL.
I'll have a look just for the sake of checking. But also in the interest of time, what we'll do is we'll be talking more about Newcastle, I'm sure, in the Q&A. So we'll kind of go through to the goal scorer projections and the goal contribution projections, and we'll have a look at your game week 1 draft, and then we'll go to Q&A. I think if we try and do the next section in 10 minutes or so max, then that leaves like another 5-10 minutes for Q&A. So this I did show it last week, but it's been updated actually. I think it's the latest update is the 26th of July, so 5 days ago. It's the 24-25 season top projected scorers. You can find this from RobTFPL on X. So he's shown the trend upwards or downwards in the goal scorer markets. These are the season-long betting markets. So this one, Haaland is still top, but he's gone up by another half a goal. Salah and Son have had a half a goal added to them. Son's half a goal has taken him up to 3rd. If you remember last week, Saka was 3rd for goal scorers, guys. But this is here. It's 39 minutes in if you're in podcast and you want to see Rob RT stats graphic. Otherwise, I suggest just go to his X account and you'll see it. What's new today, hot off the press, I don't think this one's been seen by anyone, and they maybe add some extra context because last week we were shocked how low players like Palmer and maybe Fernandes were in this table, and Foden even. This one is the projected goal involvement. So there's been, I think, something like 30 or 40 players added to the assists market. So this will be updated by RobTFPL when other players are available, but these are only the ones that are available so far on the spread betting markets. Haaland and Salah are still the top two. So 33.5 goal involvements for Haaland, 28 for Salah. Saka sneaks back to tied with Son now, both 27.5. Palmer and Fernandes actually come up to the top here now, 26.5, 24. And all the strikers with the likes of kind of Watkins, Havertz, Solanke, Isaac, they're a bit more halfway down this graphic. So what this tells me is that last week we were all kind of shocked that the likes of Palmer were projected kind of like 15 goals or so, or 14 goals. But when you look at goal contributions, he's obviously predicted 26.5. So the big difference here is that players like Haaland are predicted 6 assists, Salah 9, Saka 11, Son 10. When you get to Palmer and Fernandes, they're on like 11 and 13 projected goals. Odegaard 11, De Bruyne 14. So suddenly the guys who are really high up, like Solanke, Havertz, Watkins for the goal side of things, their assist projections are in the single digit side of things. So I think this definitely adds a bit more flavor. And as we get closer to the game week 1 and as the betting markets kind of get a bit more accurate and sentiment changes based on player availability, new signings, things like the Community Shield, that's when we might see some serious movement. But right now, as you noticed in the goal scorer one, it's moving up by like half a goal here and there every few days. So it's nothing major. But information like knowing someone is penalty taker that we didn't, that would considerably boost people. So someone like a Watkins, I think, if we saw him take that penalty, maybe he goes up in this chart. So that's just one to keep an eye out. I want to go to your draft. We'll answer Claire's comment as well about Murphy. So I think it's 5.5 million they've checked for us. Okay, so similar price to the Nottingham Forest midfielders. Cool. So TT, talk us through your draft. Just maybe read out for the guys on the podcast as well who can't see the graphic, and then you're in a 3-5-2, of course, but you also have a 2 premium draft with Salah and Haaland, which I'm excited to see because I haven't even tried to tinker one that looked acceptable to me. So I'm keen to hear you talk me through this.
Yeah, so this is kind of where I've got to at this point. So, like you said, for the listeners, Carlos Miguel, is it Carlos Miguel? I don't know what his first name. I'm just making that up. Miguel in goal, the Forest keeper. Guardiola, Barco, Lewis Hall, Anderson, Konza as kind of the back line. Then I've got Salah, Eze, Nkunku, Gibbs White, and Gordon. And then Haaland, Isak, and then bench fodder, Stewart as my attackers. And then I've got Fabianski as the kind of backup keeper as well. So the thinking with this is that my starting point is always which premiums do I want, because the premiums I'm buying for captaincy. So I'm very much looking for a game week 6 wildcard. So I'm kind of focused on the first 5 game weeks. And to me, I think I'll probably end up captaining Salah in maybe 3 of those first 5 game weeks. I want Haaland for that game week 2 fixture, and then game week 3 I've kind of left open because I'll probably make a switch, whether it's Haaland or someone down to a different premium, whether it's Palmer I captain that week, Watkins, there's options there. So that was my starting point. But I think the added element this season is we've had the Euros tournament, so I think that's going to play a little bit of a factor for the first 2 game weeks or so, just while players are coming back late to preseason. And Salah and Haaland, they've had a full preseason. These are very much known quantities. They've got great fixtures for the first 5. So to me, it's kind of a bit of a no-brainer for me personally, just having them both in, starting with 2 well-known premium assets that can go big for captaincy. And the rotations for captaincy seem good to me. So I'm very much just comfortable starting with both Haaland and Salah. I have flirted with maybe just going down to one of those kind of mid-price premium assets like Son. I think's got 2 really nice opening games with Leicester and Everton. So I'm still kind of tinkering with that a little bit, but I think I will probably end up with Salah. I think Haaland's pretty much a lock. I want him for that game week 2 fixture. And even just thinking about chips now with like double game weeks and blanks not really being a thing, I'm also really tempted to just triple captain Haaland in that game week 2. I don't think we'll really get a better fixture for Haaland this season. We might get the odd double, but I'm kind of tempted to just go really early with the triple captain, just go for that fixture and just see how it works out.
I
So if he
remember
looks
last
really,
season, a few people
yeah,
went for a triple captain early on. I think it was game week 7 or 9, or at some point, and there was a single fixture for Haaland, and he went nuts. It was just
exactly.
absolutely insane rank gains.
I think we overplayed triple captain a little bit. The value of triple captain is just nowhere near as good as a free hit or bench boost. I kind of put in between, but wildcard, bench boost, wildcard and free hit are kind of, for me, the elite chips, and triple captain. If I get anywhere near 10 points, I'll kind of be content with that. So I'm very tempted for that. In terms of the rest of the structure, Barco looks like an absolute gift. I think I want to make the most of him, given that he's probably going to start the season. So I've set up my defenders to rotate such that I only really need Konza from game week 3 onwards. And then Anderson will just come in for the home fixtures that he has. So I really want to make sure I get Hall's first fixture. I think that's a brilliant fixture, as good as it gets for game week 1 for us with Southampton at home. So that's kind of set up the defense, and Gvardiol will just be kind of the mainstay. I think he's got the attacking threat. He's got the fixtures for clean sheets. And again, Ipswich at home. Again, hopefully a good chance for a clean sheet there. So that's where I'm at with the defence. Midfield, Salah, like I mentioned, I think speaks for itself. Gordon, the fixtures are there. He's just, again, a known quantity. Hopefully he'll be back soon. I think, Nima, I know you mentioned about being a bit hesitant about him. So we'll have to see kind of.
Yeah, I was a bit worried, yeah.
But I think he should be fine. He's too integral to this team that he wouldn't be starting game week 1. So I just want to make the most of Gordon. I'm loving Eze. I think Eze is going to really smash it this season. And Elise going, I think, just elevates him even more. He's just going to be even more talismanic than he already was in that team. So pens, set pieces, Glasner, the way he's playing, I absolutely love it. So Eze, for me, is just one of those players I think is going to make a mockery of his price. Nkunku, again, it just feels a bit of a no-brainer. Again, 6.5 mil for a player that was top of the Bundesliga charts like 2 seasons ago. It's easy to forget that he was that pedigree of player that just scores goals for fun. So the fact that he's a midfielder and he's so cheap, playing in a decent Chelsea side, I think we've got a lot to see from them still. But if he stays fit, I just want to make sure I have him. So that's the reason why he's there. And then Gibbs White, that position could really be anyone. I think there's so many good 6-5 options. I kind of want to see what Szoboszlai is doing at Liverpool. I think Grealish has got a really good chance to start this season well. So I could be tempted there. But the reason I've gone with Gibbs White for now, again, it's just minutes, set pieces, pens. Like, he, again, is just the talisman for Forest. And they've got great fixtures to start. So I'm very much going for players that are known quantities for the most part. Players that are on set pieces, pens. I'm kind of just going a little bit safer to start. And then hopefully just a sprinkling of punts, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of my style. So Lewis Hall is that punt for me. I think Nkunku's a little bit of a punt too. Like, we haven't really seen him. We've never seen him play in the Premier League. Well, he's come on like a little bit on substitute appearances, but we haven't really seen him play. So I'm excited for Nkunku. And then Haaland Isak, I think, speaks for itself. I'm very tempted. I actually want to captain Isak game week 1.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah, because it seems that that's picking up steam as well. So not only is Isak coming into so many teams, he's kind of picking up steam as a game week 1 captain. Then you question that though, right? So then maybe Salah becomes more of a question mark in your head, as you say, for like a Son or a Saka, because if you won't captain Salah against Ipswich in game week 1 and you're going to captain Haaland in game week 2,
well, exactly.
Maybe you do have some time. I know you said originally you're captaining Salah for like 3 of the 5 or something, but if he's not going to come in the first one, then, it's unfortunate. Before we kind of go to the Q&A, there's just a couple more comments here that I thought I'd bring up, because rather than them doing them in the Q&A, they're kind of relevant to now. So I think it might as well. So first one is FPL Teacher says, man, backing the big haul call. So you're putting your money where your mouth is, TT. So he also asks, please give us some speculation on what must happen for Guimaraes to become a goal-scoring force of nature. Is there a world in which Bruno G would be in your team ahead of Gordon?
The thing is, Bruno is the one that benefited most from the bonus points changes, I think. Like, he was well up there. So the number of fouls he wins, like he will be smashing it for that. He's always got the assist potential. For the goals, I'm not actually sure. Like we set up set pieces a little bit that they're now trying to get Bruno kind of on the back post, and he scored a few goals now from corners. So he's definitely got a goal in him. But once Tonali comes back into the team, which is game week 3 against Spurs, Tonali was bought to play that number 8 role, and I think he'll be the one that kind of kicks on instead of Bruno, and Bruno will just remain as that kind of more sitting midfielder. So, teacher, as much as I'd love to tell you that Bruno will be banging in 10 goals this season, I can't see it personally. So, but I think he is more viable as a pick just because he really benefits this bonus points change. And I think he's 6'5", right? So, again, it's not
so
bad.
he could be a fun one. I like the look of. I'll keep an eye on him, but definitely not for game week 1 for me. I've got Nkunku in my draft. I had Kudus for a while just because he was like a 6.5 million player, and then I had a look at his fixtures and I had a look at Gibbs White's fixtures. So I've also got Gibbs White. I have Gordon and Salah, but my difference is where you have Eze, I think I have Pedro. So I have and I don't have Haaland, right? So I've got like Pedro and Havertz in the front 3. And then I've got Trent in the back line with the money from Haaland. But your team doesn't look too dissimilar to mine. The main difference is you have one cheaper defender for my Trent, and then you have Haaland for like my Havertz, and instead of Pedro, you've got a Fodder. I like this double premium team.
Yeah, like where I could make tweaks to this team, like if I just do Salah to Son, like I could just upgrade Lewis Hall to Trent. Like that could be done in one go. Or if I want to make the most of the 5 free transfers, and this is kind of where the strategy bit comes into a little bit, is that ideally you want 8 attackers that you can just rotate, so you can kind of keep rolling your transfers as long as possible. And if you've kind of got that squad depth that you just need to rotate your team, that will just give you a position where you can wildcard in game week 5 or 6 with 4 or 5 free transfers already in the bank. Wildcard, set your team up for the next 3 or 4 weeks. You have 5 free transfers ready to go, and then you can end up doing like another wildcard in game week 10 and just rinse and repeat. I think there's just
keep doing it, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a real mechanic there to make the most of those 5 free transfers. Like that's in my head what I want to do. But at the same time, my thinking we're going with the 5 mids is that midfield is generally where the bandwagons are. And a lot of people going for kind of 5 mil or 5.5 price point midfielders. So if it emerges that, I don't know, Fernandes, for example, starts kicking on this season, or Rashford, like getting to these players from a 5.5, you're going to need at least 2 transfers. So I want to hit price points where I can easily move between players. So having Eze, Gordon there can easily get to a Martinelli if he starts really well for Arsenal, or Rashford if he does well for Man United.
They're 2 that I want to keep an eye on for sure this season. Martinelli especially.
Exactly. Martinelli at 7 feels cheap. And if you can find
paying 10 mil for Saka, and if I see Martinelli as the guaranteed starter within a few weeks, and obviously Trossard and Jesus have some risks there might be a winger signing, but for now they're looking at centre midfield, so we're doing one deal at a time. Let's go to the Q&A, because I know we're already kind of like at 53. I want to make sure we get out under 60 minutes every week, and that's kind of something we stick to. But I appreciate you sharing the draft. I'll give you the mini league. Well, I'll ask you for your team ID actually, so that you can save a mini league slot. I'll just try to build a graphic that shows everyone's scores on like a timeline, and I'll kind of like figure it out in like one of those custom leagues on FPLGameweek.com where you don't actually need to be in the mini league. I just add all your IDs individually. So cool. A few thank yous to all the haulers who remained with us through the channel rebrand. So we have our super haulers, FPL Robbie, Greenback Golf, Harbour Boy, David Harrison, True Fandela. We have our haulers, longest serving hauler coming up to nearly 3 years, Dread FPL, Podner, Blonde, FPL Teacher, Doni FPL, Tom Gorsuch, Devin Raj, Lindsay O. We've got Akshay, we've got Dom, Claire FPL, Tusks, Catherine A, Harry Not Kane, FPL Eric, Neil, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Rubber Ducky, Big Mike, FPL Planner Grady, Jasker and Singh, BW Splitter, and of course the FPL Juice Show. Huge thanks last week for them redirecting everyone to raid this stream for the farewell of Net That Haul. On our Patreon as well, we have Elron, FPL California, Mike Burke, Draft Alchemy, Dr. Green Farm, and Michael Rodriguez. You are all amazing. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, both in its previous life and in its new life going forwards. Obviously, this is actually the first time in 55 minutes I'm going to say, if you've enjoyed this episode today, before we get to the Q&A, please do remember to hit that like button if you've had a good time, if you learned something new, you probably gained some insight about Newcastle from TT that's far more value than I ever bring, then drop him a follow on X. Stay in touch. I'm sure you'll enjoy interacting with him going into the new season. And so just Q&A really, TT. We're going to try to do some quick fire ones here. When you come back next time, I'm going to have a mini game as well, though. So I'm going to have like a game that you guys compete on. And like, obviously, I'm not going to just rip off like Nick and Ash from Juice and do like guess the player, but it would be great if it was just guess the player. I'm not going to lie.
All knowledge games, like that would be good. See if
just something really random, right? Like something really random that's not related to FPL, so that you can't use your...
I like it.
It could be anything. Like I'm talking like I might even like post you guys stuff before the stream and be like, so like when it gets there, we're gonna race to see who can eat this the fastest or who can build this first. Really random shit. Yeah. Like I'm gonna try to come up. So in the chat, if you've seen anything funny on like TikTok or Insta, any reels where people are competing in some kind of trendy game, let us know. We'll check that out. Yeah. So Q&A. What do we have? So Discomfort said, on that note, remember to like and subscribe. We've already covered Pope, so I won't go back to that one. So Podner, yes. So if you were in the Net That Haul mini league last year, it has now been renewed. You'll see that the name of the mini league is changed to Locked In FPL. You should be in there without having to do anything. If you're new, the mini league link will be, the auto join link is in the video description. So hit that in podcast or YouTube. I just bring back FPL Harry's comment from earlier because we did talk about everyone but Willock. So just any quick fire thought. Well, I suppose we did speak about Willock, but we kind of didn't say whether we would get him as an FPL asset. Whereas with Murphy, we said it seemed feasible as a punt at the beginning.
I absolutely love Willock. I think he's just such a good player and he's so talented. Like he's got so many elements to his game. I think he will probably start the season as well because we're still waiting for Tonali to come back. He's got such a good engine on him and he's got goals as well. So Willock, again, a little bit of a short-term punt until Tonali's back in game week 3, but why not? Like, if he's cheap, is he 5.5 too? I'm having a guess here because I haven't actually seen it. I imagine
it's similar price. Yeah, I would imagine so. What else we have? We have a few other comments. So FPL Discomfort, this isn't really a question. He says, if only you had a right wing that was highly sought after and didn't sell them to Brighton. So I think he's trolling you here, isn't he?
Yeah, he's trolling me with Yankuba Minter, who we've just gifted to Brighton, and he's probably going to
scoring right in pre-season. He's smashing it.
Fun. He's absolutely smashing it. I was gutted to see him go, but I think we had to sell him for the kind of PSR situation. So I hope he does smash it.
At least you had to sell him for PSR. Our young 16-year-old striker left for Man United to get double the wages that we wouldn't break our wage structure, and he left. So he scored 10 goals against Liverpool in one game. So tells you the kind of talent that's there. So he's been told he's going to be the third player in that centre forward position in the kind of pathway next season. So he's playing for the youth team, but he's behind Højlund and Xerxes, the third striker.
Know that your third choice at 16 for Man United.
Without even having been on a bench for a first.
We've never been on the pitch. Yeah, that's pretty mental. So
that is sick. So you could tell the kind of talent we're talking about here. So yeah, I'm pretty upset like you, but at least yours left for PSR. I was just left because
at least we got some money out of it. So
yeah, we got nothing.
Exactly.
Oh man, so just a comment from Imayed Ahsan. Thank you for tuning in, buddy. He says Chris's laugh was infectious. Gabe's fetish for correct pronunciation of the player names will be missed. He says best of luck, Nima. So thank you. I will pass on your love to the boys. I'm sure they'll be very happy to hear that. So Getty FPL with one of the last kind of one or two real FPL questions, and then we'll get out of here. So if Gordon goes to Liverpool, would Barnes tempt you for a punt? I'm guessing firstly you would really not want Gordon to go to Liverpool, but if he did, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. Or am I kind of making it too simple there?
Yeah, I saw I think Fabrizio was tweeting something about watch this space for Gordon, so that's not giving me much confidence, because like if that actually becomes a thing, like I'll be gutted to see Gordon leave, and I'm sure we'll get good money for him, but he will absolutely smash it in that Liverpool team. So there's probably two things that come out of it, that maybe Gordon nails down that left wing spot for Liverpool, and then he could absolutely smash it there for 7.5. But then Barnes at 6.5 would then, like you said, like Getty automatically probably be a starter. We know he's got goal threat. Like he's a very consistent goal scorer, especially at Leicester. Like when he was fit, he was banging goals for fun. So yeah, I think Barnes is definitely a good punt if that happens. But I really want Gordon to stay, so let's hope that doesn't happen.
Final FPL question from Hectic FPL. It's not really FPL, I guess. It's just more about, like, because we were talking about Newcastle before and going into it as a fan, so into the season. He's saying, like, maybe the biggest worry, because obviously last season we said the issue was the injuries. Do you have any concerns of, like, the manager or Bruno G leaving this summer, or do you think that's more of like a, if things don't go well in the next 1 or 2 seasons, then you'd be more worried about that? Because I'm not sure I'd be worried about how, like, going at this stage, like this size.
I agree. I think lucky for us as Newcastle fans, like, this England job openings come a bit too early for him. I think he still has unfinished business. So whether it's in like 2 or 3 seasons time, I think it might be a different story and he might consider it a lot more. But I'd like to think he's pretty committed to carrying on. I think, like I said, he wants to win us a trophy. Like, that's ultimately his goal. So I think Eddie Howe stays. And Bruno, like, we had the 100 mil release clause, no one paid it, so now it's free for all. How much ever, like, we want people to pay for him, like, we're not going to let him go for probably less than maybe like 120 now, which I don't think people will pay. So I think he stays, and I think Isak for me is more important. And if he stays, Bruno stays, Gordon stays, then we're in.
It's like the project stays together, because as you say, it's like an exciting year. If I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be very looking forward to going into this year. So we're at the hour mark. We will get everyone out of here. But TT, it's been a pleasure. Everyone can find you on X at FPL_TT. The link is in the descriptions. Please do go drop him a follow and thank him for imparting all this knowledge on us. I wish you some more fun tinkering over the next few weeks. Hopefully, you've enjoyed your first appearance launching the new channel together. Next week, the logo might be different again. So please bear with me, everyone, as the rebrand continues to slowly evolve from what it was to what it will be. We're not quite there yet, but we thought you'd rather see content than just wait for a logo, things like that, like the music at the beginning. Like, it will all come with good time, I promise, and the production value will get great. But for now, I just want to chat to some friends, chat FPL, and have a good Wednesday. So cheers, TT. We will see you hopefully here again at some point this season. And before we go, I'll just put a quick picture up of the last time I saw you a few months ago at the infamous gathering in Toca Social playing football. My question for you as we leave is, who was the biggest baller on the night? If you're on podcast, 1 hour, 2 minutes come in. We've got quite a few content creators. We've got RJ from Only One Bonus.
We've got too many ballers in that photo.
Everyone there's a content creator. We've got Sonaldo, we've got Baker, we've got Fran, we've got Pras, we've got Trophy, we've got you, me, RJ. It's just crazy, man. So that was a great time. I hope we could do that again. But who was the number one baller that day? And you can't say yourself.
Oh, no, I'm definitely nowhere near the top for that. I thought RJ was good. Pras had his moments, didn't he? I liked Fran. Fran's consistency was good.
Fran had some Spanish techers with the way he kicked the ball. I think it's between Baker and Fran for me. Hopefully we can do a re-round again in the future.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say those two as well. And like Nima, I'm so happy for you, like, on your journey as a content creator now going solo. So like, thanks for having me on, mate. Like, hopefully I'll be back again at some point in the future. Like, once you get going, I'll be here supporting you. So like, really looking forward to seeing how you get on with the content this season too. So make sure you guys like stay tuned. Like, I'm sure there's lots of good things to come.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. On that note, you reminded me something I forgot to say. So actually, in the video description, there's also a link to a secret stealth mode channel that will be launching its first episode on the 13th of August, Tuesday. I will be launching another channel fresh off the block. It will not be the Phoenix that rises from Net That Haul, but it will be a whole new channel with a co-host that is quite well known in the community and plays a very different way in terms of FPL to me. So if you do want to keep an eye on that and you want to also see what exciting stuff we're cooking up, do click on the code name Lawnmower in the description of the video. And please do follow me over there for what will come on the 13th of August. But other than that, we were Locked In FPL. So far, Isaac is locked into our FPL teams, 1 out of 15. We'll keep going for the rest of the preseason till we get to 15 out of 15. But thank you so much, my man. We will see you all soon, and peace to everyone. Take care, my friend.